Founded January 16, 1920, Zeta Phi Beta began as an idea conceived by 5 co-eds at Howard University in Washington, D.C. Arizona Cleaver, Myrtle Tyler, Viola Tyler, Fanny Petty, and Pearl Neal. These 5 women, also known as our 5 Pearls, dared to depart from the traditional coalition for Black women and sought to establish a new organization predicated on the precepts of scholarship, service, sisterly love, and finer womanhood. It was the mission of the founders that the sorority would reach college women in all parts of the country who were sorority-minded and desired to follow the founding principles of the organization. In 1959, Edith Bryant was interested in chartering a local chapter of Zeta Phi Beta in Denver, Colorado, after consulting with the Midwestern Regional Director at the time, Jewel Livingston. So the weekend of July 1st, 1960, Edith Bryant, Mary Black, Celestine James, Arvella Reynolds, Mildred Stevenson, Jeanette Goins McCrae, Rebecca Miller, and Ruth Walton Slater, the chartering ceremony was held and the Zeta 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 Chapter of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated was born. With the chapter in place, the members began their journey to promote the principles on which Zeta Phi Beta was founded. Because of the vision of the women who chartered the Zeta 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 Chapter, rich, lasting traditions and heritage have been handed down from generation to generation. Sorors Rebecca Miller, Della Donna, and Constance Williams share some of their history with us.
My name is Rebecca Beatrice Lightfoot Miller. When did I first join that Zeta? I always have to laugh about that because I knew about Zeta when I was in high school.
I joined Zeta Phi Beta sorority in the fall of 1967.
I joined the sorority in 1950.
My aunt in New York City had 2 friends that were attending graduate school in Columbia University, and they roomed with my aunt. And when I was a teenager, every summer when school closed, I would go stay with my aunt. So I got to meet Zetas, and I was so impressed. They were teachers, and I was so impressed with them. And I can recall actually Zeta having their boule in New York, and I went to some of their meetings. And even in high school, I said, I'm going to be a Zeta.
I was a student at the University of Oklahoma. And there were 5 of us. 2 of us were students at the University of Oklahoma. The other 3 were students at other universities in the state of Oklahoma.
I went to college at Langston University in Langston, Oklahoma. I studied all the freshman subjects at Langston, and at that time we had to live in the University of Women, which was a freshman's dormitory. My major was business administration with elementary education as a minor.
I was so impressed with several African American teachers. One of them I'll never forget was Mrs. Greer. She was my math teacher in high school, and she took quite a care for all of her students. And I remember once she told my mother that I had acted inappropriately. At that time, they just watched everything that you did, and I happened to walk through an alley on the way home. I don't know if you know what an alley is, but ladies didn't do that. And so she told my mom, and I got in trouble. But I remembered that she did that because she cared about me and she cared about my character. So this math teacher and an English teacher encouraged the 5 of us to join Zeta, and they were such outstanding women, African American, intelligent, smart, brilliant, beautiful women. They were the kind of woman that I wanted to grow up to be. And so I agreed to join and have not regretted a moment of it.
I became a Zeta when I moved to Denver. But Soror Harrison always said, wherever you go to live, there should be some chapter of Zeta. And then I said, yes, I'm going to join Zeta. in whatever state I go into. But as a Zeta for 50-some years, not on this chapter is 54 years old, but I'm sure I was at least active for 53 years.
When I graduated, I did several jobs for a living before I could get hired, because it was rather hard to get hired at that particular time. It was all segregation, and we did not, the people that had their jobs, they kept their jobs, and they weren't hiring too much. And I first started out as a secretary in the county agent's office in the field of agriculture, working as the secretary for home demonstration agent and the county agent's office, making $50 a month.
But the first daycare center, well, one of the daycare centers I worked in was Shorter AME. I was there for about 6 or 7. I organized their daycare center. And I was there for 4 or 5 years. Then after that, I established my own daycare center, which was I was able to carry out my own philosophy about early childhood education. And that was one of the happiest moments of my life, was to be able to have my own daycare center.
Well, I can tell you about one of my most exciting moments, and that was when we had the regional meeting in Denver, Colorado in 1983. I was the state director at that time, and so was heavily involved in the development of that regional meeting. And I was so proud of our sorors. We put our shoulder to the grindstone. We worked really hard. There were only a few of us, but we worked really hard, and we pulled off a fantastic regional meeting. And the National Grand Basileus attended, Sora Edith Francis. And I remember that to this day, and I remember taking pictures, and I remember her getting off the elevator and walking through the hotel. And truly, I thought I saw in her eyes her appreciation for what we had done.
My greatest experience was going to my first boule. Not boule, it was my first regional. I remember at that particular time, we actually, you people don't know about that, but we actually did not stay at hotels. We stayed in people's homes. And I remember going to Oklahoma, and we stayed in a Zeta's home. And I remember we used to have the Zeta Queen contest, and I was the Zeta Queen, but at that particular time, I was bachelor of our chapter here and had about 4 active Zetas. And the other thing that was always so impressive with me, when I went to a boule and we were at a hotel, when all the representatives, when all of us held hands and sung our hymn, that was such a fascinating thing, to have so many people at one time. We all made this chain around holding hands. That was such an exciting experience for me.
And my job was to work with teachers across the system to teach them how to infuse career development into their classrooms for their students. I had a fantastic job, and at that time, that was 1973 or so, people were looking for folks who looked like me. And so I got a plum job and enjoyed it, and I was scared to death because I was the only one who looked like me actually in the system, but it worked out. Oh, so from there, I came to Colorado, and I taught for a couple of years in the Cherry Creek school system, and then I went on to the University of Colorado Boulder, where I did a number of different things in administration, winding up as the acting associate vice chancellor for student affairs at the University of Colorado Boulder. I was there for 18 years. I loved my experience there, and I think that I was placed in positions where I could work with and help students navigate the system, and that's what I love doing. From there, I went to Lincoln University in Jefferson City, Missouri, as the vice president for student affairs. And there, I was also given the responsibility and the opportunity to work with students. And in addition to that, I was given the funds that I needed to help students be successful in the system. So I have loved everything that I have done, actually.
Well, at that particular time, I was rushed to all of the sororities on the campus, but the dean of men was a Phi Beta Sigma, and the lady that was his wife was a Zeta Phi Beta sorority. She held office as dean of women, and they seemed to be more sophisticated on the campus, and they were the quieter sorority. And they wore my favorite colors, royal blue and white.
I love the camaraderie of my sorors. They're wonderful women in all walks of life, doing all sorts of amazing things, some things that we couldn't have even imagined when I joined the sorority. And I love that you can depend on the Sisterhood for the things that we need as an organization and as people. So I love the ladies.
And oh man, I was all ready and excited because I knew I was going to be a Zeta. And I had two other friends. They needed two other members in order to establish the Zeta Zeta Chapter. So it was two other ladies and myself. We became charter members. And that's how Zeta Zeta Chapter was chartered.
Today, in 2013, the fine women of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated, Zeta 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 Chapter, continue to carry on the legacy of a high standard of excellence throughout the Denver metro area. With strong core values and a rich history of strong, beautiful, talented women running the organization, it is with no surprise that the current membership continues to carry the flaming torch for the blue and white. Sorors Carla Whitney and Margaret Neal share their experiences with us.
I joined Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated in the spring semester, April 2001.
I've been a Zeta since spring of 1982. I crossed over at Radford University in Radford, Virginia.
I went to college here in Denver at Metro State College of Denver on a teaching scholarship.
I studied business, administration, and marketing.
My father is an Alpha, and we grew up with, a lot of the principles and things of Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity. So I actually thought, just to please my dad, that I would be an AKA. But he actually encouraged and introduced me to the Zetas here in Denver. And my twin sister, who's a Zeta also, she kind of branched out and went against Dad early on, and in her undergrad year became a Zeta in 1996.
I joined Zeta because my grandmother was a past international Grand Bachelor, Sarah Lilia Harrison. And I grew up in Zeta. I knew that I would one day be a Zeta. And when I went to Radford, there were no Zetas on campus. So I got together 5 girls and we chartered a chapter at Radford University.
I love that we evoke and embrace the different personalities and character traits of all African American women.
I love mainly the relationships that I've made in Zeta. My sorors are good friends. They're not just my sorors, they're like my sisters. I didn't have any sisters growing up. I grew up with 3 brothers. And so having my sorors are just like having sisters.
Currently I teach 4th grade at Lowry Elementary School in Denver Public Schools.
After I graduated, I worked in retail for a few years. Then I did banking. And then I moved into the securities business, which is where I am now. I'm work for FINRA, which is a regulatory agency. We regulate brokerage firms and stockbrokers. I'm a compliance assistant, and I handle customer complaints and broker terminations and that kind of stuff.
I've been teaching for 12 and a half years. I'm in my 13th year, actually. The funniest Zeta moment that stands out in my mind is early on in my Zeta years when I first started stepping. My sister and we always stepped together, and we did about 3 shows in 2 months. We did a show at DU, we did one at CU Boulder, and then we did one at Southern Colorado and Colorado Springs. At the Colorado Springs show, right when we started stepping, my sister stepped so hard that her shoes flew off into the audience. And then about a couple of months later, we did a stroll off for the Alpha's Midwestern Region Conference, and her sunglasses flew off too. But it was very, very funny. I don't know how I kept a straight face, but she stepped the entire show with no shoes. So that was the funniest.
Building a strong chapter starts with our youth. The Zeta 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 Chapter of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated is dedicated to creating a community that is rich with development and learning opportunities for women, young and seasoned. Tendering to the value of scholarship, the Zeta 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 Chapter strives to foster strong examples of leadership by continuing to grow strong programs that promote the academic excellence of our youth. Our youth auxiliaries, the Arcanettes, which focuses on high school-age girls who intend to be college-bound, and the Amiquettes, which focuses on girls ages 9 through 13, invite community youth to become affiliated in membership with Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated. The Zeta 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 Chapter works diligently to provide strong academic foundations to youth, assisting them to find and seize opportunities to pursue higher learning while building awareness of how they can meet the needs of their community at large. The Zeta 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 Chapter has always valued the community at large, and Zeta women are encouraged to meet the needs of our local community residents by giving back. Focusing on mind, body, and spirit, the organization strives to host and participate in community projects that keep our communities informed, healthy, and paying it forward. Over the past 2 decades, Zeta 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 has been involved in strong community service projects like Habitat for Humanity, the Epworth Thanksgiving Basket Project, Share the Love Project, and the annual Family Health and Fitness Expo. Additionally, we invite courageous and resilient women from the local community to become affiliated with Zeta Phi Beta through joining the chapter's Amique program. As a member of the program, the Amique promote good public relations between Zetas, other women in the community, make non-Greek women feel closer to the program of a Greek organization, and assume more cooperation in community projects that are sponsored by Zetas. Established in October of 1971, the Denver Amique have actively supported fundraising and community service projects of the Zeta 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 Chapter through the years. Along with the value of service in the community, the Zeta 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 Chapter celebrates the art of being a finer woman with each public appearance. Each year, the chapter celebrates the finer woman through elegant tea parties, competing in annual step competitions, honoring and showcasing strong women in the organization, and hosting Zeta Magnificent social affairs that are open to the community. Last year, the chapter created a new program that focused on instilling the values of finer womanhood in young ladies ages 9 through 13 through a junior debutante program called Girls to Pearls. The program is designed to introduce the young ladies to dining etiquette, community service, and provide a support network for their self-esteem and academic progress in school. Participants of the community program are encouraged to build up their community one girl at a time through caring about their appearance, how they treat others, and their academic success. The Zeta Phi Beta sorority would be nothing without the bond of love that each of the sisters share with one another. Being a diverse organization with women who represent multiple nationalities, professions, and interests, The Zeta 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 chapter has built a sisterly bond over the years that transcends all barriers. Zeta women laugh together, play together, conduct business, and advocate for the youth. With a list of impressive titles, backgrounds, awards, and accolades, the women of the Zeta 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 chapter exude excellence that mirrors the values that have been passed down since 1960 by their charter members. You've met some of our legacy members. Let's visit with some of the other fine women of the chapter. Catherine Anadu, Petroleum Engineer. Maya Brown, Certified Public Accountant. Shelley Ann Awicka, Financial Planning Manager. Elizabeth Liza George, Elementary School Music Teacher. Zoe Grant, owner of ZGL Engineering Services. Anitra Matthews, Senior Manager of Acquisition, Sales, and Sales Operations. Margaret Neal, Compliance Assistant. Tasha Oliver, Medicaid Quality Improvement Manager. Rolinda Pruitt, Senior Accountant. Letitia Tucker, Director of Ancillary Services. Carla Whitney, Elementary School Teacher. Tara Stansberry, Statistician. These are the women of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated, Zeta 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 Chapter.
I would share with my sisters today that the sorority is a sisterhood like a family, but also it's a business, and we need to take care of business of the sorority. We fight like sisters do, but when it's time to take care of business, we need to do that.